Ruined. We're ruined. Listen to the reviews of our latest movie. The highly anticipated sequel, Joker Folie, Deux, is so bad, I saw 4 seats walk out. It's so dull, I'd advise you to bring pajamas. It's so tasteless. Who wrote that stinking picture anyway? Todd Phillips did, Mr. Warner. Who directed it? Todd Phillips, Mr. Warner. Who starred in it? Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga, Mr. Warner. Who funded it? You, Mr. Warner. Well then, who served the coffee and donuts between takes? Your mother. Can the old bag! Anyway, let's just hope the Batman 2 and James Gunn's DC universe does a lot better than Joker Folie, Deux. We have to make at least $200 million with each of them, or we're sunk. Why is that, Mr. Warner? I told you, I pissed it away. Oh, don't make that look at me. Remember when everyone thought this movie would fail? The 2019 American psychological thriller directed by Todd Phillips, named after the DC comic book villain Joker, took the world by storm when it was released. Many people were skeptical about this movie because the Joker is one of the most popular comic book villains of all time, and his origins are usually unknown. But it surprised everybody when it raised over $1 billion in the box office and has had much critical acclaim, with many people claiming it's a cinematic masterpiece, including myself, and others fearing that this would cause violence and shootings around the world. But the only thing I've seen it cause is people imitating the dance scene in those stairs. With the original Joker movie making over $1 billion in the box office, you'd think that a sequel would make twice that much. But instead, we got Joker Folie, Deux. Joker Folie, Deux is a 2024 American jukebox musical legal drama film. Based on DC Comics characters, it's a sequel to the first Joker movie and stars Joaquin Phoenix reprising his role as Arthur Fleck, alongside Lady Gaga as Harleen Lee Quinzel. Joker was originally intended to be a standalone film, but its success at the box office sparked interest in a sequel. Warner Bros. Eventually convinced Phillips and Phoenix to return, with more creative freedom and a significantly greater budget. With how much I love the original Joker movie, I know you all expect me to tear the sequel a new asshole. But I'm not going to do that.
What? Why?
Mostly because everyone has talked to death about how bad this movie is. I don't think I can add anything else to it or say anything about it that everyone else hasn't already. But I can be fair and talk about why I don't like the movie and the elements of it I do like. Yes, even a movie as bad as Joker Folie, Deux does have some good moments in it. It's kind of like when you watch the Star Wars prequel and sequel trilogies, where they're not as good as the original movies, but there are some moments that make them worthwhile. And Joker Folie, Deux isn't short of its decent moments here and there. Now, do the good parts about this movie erase all the bad parts? Most people would say of course not. What kind of stupid question is that? But just because the good bits in the movie don't make up for the bad bits, that doesn't mean they're not worth talking about. So I'm going to start off this review by talking about what I didn't like about the movie, and then move on to what I did like about the movie. So let's take a look at Joker Folie, Deux. The first thing that makes this movie a mess is the story. I'll go through the story real quick and see if anybody can make any sense of it. Arthur Fleck is in custody at Arkham State Hospital awaiting trial for his crimes he committed 2 years prior. In a music therapy session, Arthur meets Harleen Lee Quinzel, who claims that she grew up in the same neighbourhood he did, had an abusive father who died in a car crash, and was imprisoned after burning down her parents' apartment building. Lee also expresses her admiration for Joker's crimes and personality. As their relationship develops, they begin imagining life as a stage musical with them in the spotlight through their linked insanity. When the trial takes place, Assistant District Attorney Harvey Dent takes lead at the trial that's being televised around the world. The whole trial recounts Arthur's crimes from 2 years ago, as he develops a bigger relationship with Lee. And during this time, he keeps flipping back and forth between his Joker persona and his normal Arthur Fleck persona. Yeah, the plot's kind of a mess when you compare it to the plot of the first movie. And the plot is just dull when you look at the whole movie. The whole thing is just a court scene drama / prison drama, but why would we want to see that in a movie about the Clown Prince of Crime? Now, it could have been interesting if they had more Joker-esque moments in it, like in the DC comics and other adaptations of the DC comic universe. Instead, what we got is a dull, uninteresting prison drama / courtroom drama that has to remind us every 10 minutes about the events of the first movie. I know a sequel relies on the original movie to help everyone get to grips with the plot, but the main issue is they keep reminding us about what happened in the first movie every 10 minutes of the movie. Now, if this movie didn't have any tie-ins to the DC comic book characters, it could have worked as a standalone movie, but it just doesn't work as a Joker movie, because that's not the kind of stuff the Joker would do. Now, I get that Todd Phillips didn't really want much connection to the DC universe other than the names of the characters, but that's no excuse for this kind of sloppy writing. They even had a bigger budget than the first movie, so they had more freedom to do whatever they wanted with the sets, making bigger and bolder sets that would fit the musical aspect. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that this movie's a musical. When it was announced this sequel was going to be a musical, a lot of people were skeptical about it. But I kept an open mind about it because the Joker is a theatrical kind of villain, and he is known to sing and put on performances. One of the best examples of this is the animated adaptation of The Killing Joke, where the Joker sings a song about going loony. So a musical could work if done right. But the main issue is that the musical numbers don't really hit that well with the overall plot of the movie. Of course, in a musical you have to rely on songs to help tell the story. But all the musical moments are actually songs that have been well known for years, and would have been around during the decade the movie was set in. So we get hits like What the World Needs Now Is Love, For Once in My Life, If My Friends Could See Me Now, That's Entertainment, When You're Smiling the Whole World Smiles With You, To Love Somebody, Close to You, The Joker, Gonna Build a Mountain, If You Go Away, That's Life, etc. Of course, it would be easy for anybody in real life to just randomly go into song and dance at random moments with no rhyme or reason. And the movie does it in two ways. Some musical moments are during the fantasies, and some are during reality. And you have Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga singing these songs as their characters. And I think it's no secret that Joaquin Phoenix isn't a professional singer, so he's not going to sound spectacular in the songs. But I will admit there are some musical bits where he does sound decent enough. The best examples of this are To Love Somebody and The Joker. And plus, the character Arthur Fleck isn't a professional singer in the movie, so it's understandable if he wouldn't sound that great. Even Lady Gaga doesn't sound too great when she's singing her songs. But I think that was intended, since her character isn't a professional singer, she's a loony. So I think it's quite interesting to see a professional singer act as though she can't sing for shit. It really shows how much range Lady Gaga has as an actress and a singer. But again, it's not enough to save the movie. When I went to see this movie in the cinema with my friend, I could hear him huffing and puffing every time the musical aspect started. Which is fair enough, since he's not a musical fan, and I get that. Not everyone's going to be into musical films. And I'm very sure I heard someone right next to us and in front of us actually snoring during the movie. That's how bad it was. And we all know that in musicals, characters sing these songs to let everyone know what they're feeling. But as I said, the songs are just well-known songs being re-sung by Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix throughout the film. And they just come in at random moments with no rhyme or reason. So I get the feeling that people probably wouldn't have been as skeptical about it if they hadn't announced it was going to be a musical and kept it hush-hush until the movie was released. Another major problem is the fact that Lady Gaga doesn't have that much to do in the movie. She was heavily advertised as this movie's version of Harley Quinn in all the advertisements and newspaper articles, but she only got roughly 30 minutes of screen time throughout the whole movie. It's like when the original Suicide Squad movie was announced and the Joker was advertised heavily in posters, marketing and trailers, but only showed up for like a quarter of the movie. So it really was a missed opportunity, especially when you've seen all the deleted scenes in the trailers and that were leaked online. There were so many scenes filmed of Lady Gaga that might have made her appearance all the more worthwhile in the film. But because most of those scenes were cut from the movie, we got so little of Lady Gaga as Harley Quinzel. And I get that the focus of the movie is all on Arthur Fleck, aka the Joker. But when you heavily advertise a character that's going to be in the movie, at least have the decency to show more of that character in the movie. This could be seen as false advertising if you heavily advertise a character who's hardly going to be in the movie. Another letdown this movie has is the character of Harvey Dent, newly re-elected assistant district attorney who plans to bring Arthur to justice for his crimes. When it was announced Harvey was going to be in the film, everyone was expecting Arthur to be responsible for him becoming Two-Face, and while that definitely is the case in the third act of the movie, the main problem of Harvey Dent was they barely even focused on him. He shows up, says he's going to take charge of the trial, shows up at the trial and hardly does anything worthwhile, and then becomes Two-Face during a car explosion in the courtroom. I mean, it probably would have been a bit more worthwhile if they had scenes of Harvey Dent chatting to Arthur Fleck between the trial. In fact, his appearances are so minimal in the movie, I can't remember what the hell he actually says in the movie. All I can remember is he's taken charge of the trial, then he becomes Two-Face in a car explosion at the courtroom. And that's it. And this is also the second time that the Joker had an influence in Harvey Dent becoming Two-Face since The Dark Knight. But because the movie barely even focuses on Harvey Dent, it makes the transformation lackluster, when it could have led up to a standalone Two-Face movie as a spin-off for this film. But with the poor box office performance this movie gave, I doubt that'll ever come to be. But the biggest piss take this movie has is how they handled Arthur Fleck. The movie just brings him back to square one for the first movie, where he's this pathetic character who's got nothing to live for. Whereas the first movie ended with him going totally insane after all the shit he's gone through, having nothing left to lose and not caring about the consequences. But the sequel brings him back to square one and makes him as pathetic as he was at the start of the movie, pretty much destroying everything that the first movie set up. And I won't give away much for the ending of the movie for those who haven't seen it, and I doubt they ever will. But let's just say it's going to piss you off even more if you haven't watched the movie yet. All these factors led to it being a box office disaster, only just making back its own budget, but not nearly enough for it to be considered a box office hit. In fact, the box office performances were so bad that Joker Folie Deux was actually released on digital media on October the 29th, 2024. Not long after it was released in cinemas on the 4th of October. Now I know it's customary to release a movie on digital download and physical media at least a month or two after it's released in the cinemas. But when you put it on digital download just a few weeks after its cinema release, you know that the studio is desperate to try and win back some of the money they lost.
Tell us how much money you made for us.
I didn't make any money for you. I didn't make any money for you. I lost money for you. And I did it deliberately. I did it deliberately. I did it deliberately.
And now that I got all the stuff that I didn't enjoy about the movie out of the way, we shall now move on to the good stuff that I did like. The first good part of this movie is the acting. Joaquin Phoenix returns to play Arthur Fleck, aka Joker, and like in the first movie, he does a top-notch job bringing the character to life. We get to see every emotion that the character has had in the first movie. Sad, lonely, angry, insane, mentally ill, narcissistic, and Joaquin just plays this part really, really well. You can really tell how dedicated he was to the character. Like in the original Joker theme, Joaquin Phoenix just really gives it his all with the performance, getting to show off every emotion that the character is known for. Sadness, anger, happiness and joy. He just plays it really well. Even Lady Gaga does a great job of what little screen time she has as Lee Quinzel. Now we all know that Lady Gaga is a singer before an actor, but she's done quite a few acting roles in the past and she's done a good job of them. Hell, she even managed to guest star in The Simpsons, but who the hell hasn't at this point? And it's a very interesting change of pace for the character. For those of you who don't remember, Harley Quinn wasn't created until the mid-90s during Batman the Animated Series, so her character was more open to changes compared to the other DC characters. And we've seen her relationship with the Joker in different lights in whatever media you see. In all those past incarnations of the characters, you see Joker as a very manipulative person who's just using Harley as a means to an end. And the original Suicide Squad film had him actually care about Harley for a change, but not much is done with that since the Joker doesn't have that much screen time compared to the other characters. We even have Harley break up with the Joker in the Harley Quinn animated series to make it on her own as a criminal, bringing some interesting storytelling to the characters. And Batman Caped Crusader took a different approach to Harley Quinn, having her show up as a villain without the Joker's influence. Hell, the Joker doesn't even make an appearance until the end of the final episode for Season 1. Again, showing us a different dynamic to the character and that she can make it without the Joker and not having even met the Joker at this point. So she's more open to changes than most DC characters since she wasn't created until the 90s. But in this movie it's Lee who's the manipulative one, trying to bring out Arthur's Joker side to him since she adores Dad rather than Arthur himself. And this is a very interesting take on the character. Now if she had a lot more screen time in the movie it could have come off as a really interesting dynamic. Now the whole role reversal gag can work two ways. Either it's a really nice change of pace from what we originally know about the characters, or it can backfire and be a really shit change. But I really like what they were going with this change, making Harley the abusive one in the Joker-Harley relationship. The only issue is that the plot is such a mess, it doesn't really work as well as the writers would have hoped it to. And we have other actors who give it their all, like Brendan Gleeson as Jackie Sullivan, the abusive guard at Arkham, Steve Coogan as a TV personality who interviews Arthur in Arkham, and despite not having that much screen time in the movie, Harry Lorty does look the part for Harvey Dent. We also have Zazie Beetz and Lee Gill returning as Arthur's neighbour Sophie Dermond and colleague Gary Puddles. And like in the first movie, they're really giving it their all despite their minimal amount of screen time in the film. And even though I said the musical aspects of the movie don't really work, there are some songs in the movie that I do kind of like. While I'm not familiar with every single song that played in this movie, there are some musical scenes that I really did like in the movie. The only two musical bits I really do love in the movie is To Love Somebody, because of how it's played off as Harley and Joker having a stage show with each other, sort of having a dysfunctional couple dynamic, where they're trying to upstage the other, trying to make it all about themselves. And the Joker is Me musical bit is really good as well, because that's one of the few moments in the movie where Arthur Fleck acts like the Joker we all know and love, even if it was just a fantasy. But watching the whole scene and listening to the song on the soundtrack, it really seems like the kind of song that the Joker would sing if he had to sing a song in a DC comic or film. And it's one of those songs that just really suits the Clown Prince of Crime really well in my opinion. Hell, I love the musical number in the trial scene so much that they actually came up with a way to make it better. Have it go as it did in the original film, but instead of having Arthur kill himself near the end and then cutting back to reality, have Arthur shoot into thin air, then to reveal that we've gone back to reality and he actually did kill and injure a lot of people during his dance number. Once again showing that he can't really tell much of a difference between reality and fantasy. That would have made it 1,000 times better, and it would have been so Joker. Well, more Joker than it already was. Another good thing about this movie is the cinematography. The cinematography in this movie is just as good as it was in the first movie. With the transitions from reality to fantasy and the camera work, it just really feels like at times you're watching the first Joker movie. One of the most impressive scenes is the courthouse explosion when Arthur escapes from the courthouse, gets saved by some of his followers, realises what he's become and what he's created, and then runs away from his followers into the streets of Gotham. The most amazing part of this whole scene is that it's all done in one shot. The camera follows Arthur throughout the whole scene, up from him leaving the courthouse room, which was just destroyed, up to when he's running away from his followers in the streets of Gotham. It's really amazing that they did this whole scene in one shot. And it makes me wonder just how many takes they did to get this scene right. The soundtrack is really good in this movie, just as on par with the first movie. Bringing back the original composer really helped to get the music across for the film, having it be dark, depressing, and even monotone at times. And it really suits the tone of the movie, as I said. I also have quite a soft spot for the animated short that plays in the beginning of the movie, Me and My Shadow, because it takes inspiration from the classic Looney Tunes cartoons, right down to the music and the animation. It just seems like a Looney Tunes-esque cartoon. And speaking of Looney Tunes, an old Pepe Le Pew cartoon shows up in the TV at Arkham State Hospital in a couple of scenes. With how the world is trying to cancel Pepe Le Pew at the moment, I find it really astonishing that Todd Phillips was actually allowed to put a Pepe Le Pew cartoon in the movie. Say what you want about the guy, but he has balls. And I'm still surprised that Warner Brothers even allowed him to use it, even when it's Warner Brothers themselves trying to erase the character from existence. So I find it really amazing that they actually allowed him to use one of the Pepe Le Pew cartoons. It just shows that sometimes giving the director a lot of creative freedom really does work for the movie's favour. Yes, Joker Folie has some good aspects to it, but are they enough to save the movie? Not really. And despite its poor performance, it did win 4 awards. It won an award for Most Anticipated Movie of the Second Half of 2024. It won the Worst Screen Combo for Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga, Worst Remake, Rip-Off or Sequel Award. Didn't even know they did that kind of award. And it even won a Premio Soundtrack Stars Award. Now this is no surprise for me, since the composer of the original movie came back to compose the movie for the sequel. And even though most of those awards are pretty bad awards, it still amazes me that it won at least 4 awards in some sort of category. And looking back at this movie, I'm still unsure whether Todd Phillips was given a big middle finger to the fans of the first movie, or a big middle finger to Warner Brothers for getting him to make the sequel in the first place. Joker Folie Deux has gained a reputation for being the worst movie sequel ever, and having watched it a few times myself, I really do have to agree with them. It underlines everything that the first movie establishes. The plot in general is a mess, and there's a lot of moments that really don't work for it. But it's optional if you want to watch the movie or not. But I would personally just watch some of the scenes that are worthwhile, like the courthouse explosion and escape from his followers scene, and a couple of the musical numbers are pretty entertaining to watch, but I would just watch those few good moments and skip the rest of the movie entirely. I've seen a lot of comments on the internet from people saying that this movie ruined the first movie for them. But I really didn't let it get to me that much, because at the end of the day it's just another pointless sequel that didn't have to be made. You're better off to just stick with the first movie and ignore this one entirely. But if you are curious to watch the sequel, then I'd recommend just watching it on TV. So yeah, if you are interested in watching this movie, then I do recommend it just to satisfy your curiosities. But if you want a good movie about the Clown Prince of Crime, this is definitely not for you. I would definitely skip it. I'm Dalek44, and I'll see you next time, folks.